I would love for you to do me a favor. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to take a few seconds to answer it out loud. Are you ready? Who are you? Well, how'd you do? Did you hesitate? Did you take a second? Were you caught off guard? Were you curious as to why I'm asking that question? Hi, I'm Adjanaye Mystique, and I'm an intentional space holder, or space maker. You might be wondering, what's a space holder? And what's the difference between that and a space maker? The difference between someone who holds space versus someone who makes space, and why intentional is the word that actually separates the two. When you have the energy of someone who naturally holds space, right, that usually is experienced by other people as someone who is safe, someone who they want to talk to, someone who people will feel some strange pull or like almost magnetism to speak to you about deep things, things that they don't talk to most people about, right? Things that they'll say, oh, I haven't told anyone this, or you're only one of 3 people that I've told this. You may hear people's life stories, childhood traumas, breakups, messy things that most people might wonder, why did somebody tell me this? But if you're a space holder, you are probably not asking that question anymore, because that has happened to you so much and it happens so often that you're just like, for whatever reason, people tell me things they don't tell other people. For whatever reason, people trust me with their secrets. For whatever reason, people tell me really deep things because I guess they feel comfortable telling me that. They want to feel close to me. Whatever the reason, whatever you think the reason is, I would like to bring to your attention, especially if this is happening in spaces and places where you don't necessarily want it to happen, especially if it's happening where you don't actually have the capacity to hold space for these people and what they're going through at the moment, but for whatever reason, you're just that type of person. You don't want to tell someone in the middle of such a deep share, I actually have to go, I'm running late, or I don't want to know this. That might not be something that comes natural to you. And that's fine. That might actually feel rude coming from you. Fair enough. I actually agree. And I've been the person who's been so awkward about telling people to basically stop talking to me. Because that's essentially what you're asking. There's a better way to do that. This is the difference between being an intentional space holder or space maker versus someone who doesn't know they're doing this. If you are intentional about making space or holding space for someone and what they're experiencing at the moment, you will have this thing called boundaries. And I think it's so funny because there's a part of me that's like, don't explain to people what boundaries are. That's such a simple thing. But when I tell you, I spent the greater part of my life having no idea what they were. And I did not realize how often people were either outright telling me or hinting at me that I needed better boundaries, stronger boundaries. I used to work as a stylist for a company, and this company had clientele that were mostly women and were high achieving, right? High achieving women. And when I worked there, it was right after 2020. It's the best way that I can say that on this platform. Okay. It's right after 2020. We all know what happened in 2020. And being someone who did not know they were a space holder, right? So I was unintentionally holding space for people all the fucking time. All the time. And being that we had just come out of a globally confusing experience, I, in my work life, started to come to the realization that most of the people, most of the clientele who would book appointments at this particular place that I was working at, I would be their first outside human interaction, more or less. And that's a conclusion that I came to in the midst of the experience because of what was happening. It would take me around like 4 more years to realize that it's not just that people were coming out of a very confusing time and they didn't really know, remember, feel comfortable interacting with others, but also my energy was so open that they did not feel like there was any limitations or anything to inhibit them from doing whatever the fuck they wanted. It's not the same as walking down the street and some stranger, like, I don't know, apprehends you in some type of way with some type of weapon. It's not the same thing, right? So you may think, oh, what's so dangerous about this? That's what I was thinking. And I found out pretty quickly. When there were clients who would strip down completely naked in front of me. No warning, no question. It's totally normal. There were moments and times where I thought, like, do they know that I'm here? Do they realize that I'm still here? There were multiple clients who would either follow me right into the stock room or follow me right into the bathroom. It happened multiple times that clients were just following me wherever I went. When there were these instances that would happen, like, things that were just inappropriate. They were doing inappropriate things that I didn't think were normal. I'm seeing a good amount of people on a daily basis. So my experience allows me to look at things very differently. But I asked my coworkers and I asked my manager, is this weird? Why is this happening to me? And when I reflected back to that time, as I was coming close to the idea of being a space holder, like what that is and what kind of person is doing that unintentionally, I realized the reason that this was consistently happening to me and not to my coworkers, they would have like one-off issues here and there, right? It was a crazy, confusing time. So there were some weird and dangerous clients here and there. But what was happening to me was consistent. When this kept happening, I was so upset. Borderline distraught, because my last straw was when I wanted to go pee. And I felt like I couldn't even do that. Right? Like I was getting more and more upset, and again, I was commuting, I was stressed, I was far, I had a lot going on. That wasn't my only job. I was working 2 others at the same time. There was a lot happening. So my last straw was when I felt like I was about to be apprehended in the bathroom, because I didn't understand why a client would follow me there. I assumed she didn't know that's where I was going and what I was doing. But at the same time, I'm just like, this room is for you. I'm bringing you clothes. Why are you following me everywhere I go? You don't need to do that. This is supposed to be a lecture experience. Right? Okay. Another experience that would happen a lot. I used to teach within a very conservative religious organization. So this was actually during 2020. 2019 to 2020. And I would meet with students in a small group online after a class. Like I would hold small groups. Class staff. We're supposed to meet again after the class ended. So, there was a main session, then we break out into small groups, and the small groups conclude, everyone logs off, and the staff goes into another meeting. I was late to just about every single one of those meetings. Why? Because my small group never ended on time. Why? Because there was a script that I had to read off of, right? As you can imagine. And for the most part, I'd read my script. I mean, if you know me, I'm a freestyle here a little bit. I've learned that I'm the type of person that pushes the ante just a little bit. And also, I like to make things mine. I like to be as real as I possibly can. At that time, now I'm trying, like, there is no as real as, I am who I am, and that's that. Right? But back then, I couldn't hold back that much of me. I tried, it didn't work. So I learned that it was easier for me to skim through, get the gist of what I was supposed to be teaching, and then speak to my audience, right? Speak to who was in front of me. Speak to what they're going through and what I know about them. And so because of that style, I would get a lot of people who would stay after the end of the small group, so the end of my spiel and end of asking questions about the lesson. And there would be people who would stay later than that to talk about their life and how the lesson or last week's lesson or whatever I spoke about was relevant to what they were going through. And a lot of the time they were asking for advice. And so I would give them my time. And I would overgive my time. And at that time, I didn't realize or understand what I was doing and what that meant. I got reprimanded a few times at that job that I told you about before and in this religious organization. Other instances spread out throughout my life where I would tend to overstay my welcome because I was trying to make someone else feel comfortable, right? When I say overstay my welcome, it's not that the person was trying to kick me out, but I wanted to leave. And I no longer felt as comfortable as I did when I wanted to stay. And I felt like I'm here at a time, like this is becoming an inappropriate time for me to still be here, right? There were times where I would end up sleeping at people's houses I did not want to sleep at because I didn't leave at an appropriate time. I'm saying this to give you an example of how this trait that was unbeknownst to me was essentially seeping into every area of my life because I didn't really have strong boundaries. And so because I didn't have strong boundaries, the space that I was unintentionally attempting to hold was way too big. I was trying to hold space for everyone and everything. And as you can imagine, that did not go over well. Teaching at that organization I told you, and working at the place that I worked at right after 2020, that overlapped. And that overlap, I also was working at another place during that time. That overlap caused me to lose one job, get really, really sick, leave this organization, and quit the other job. Because I was so spread thin and so burnt out, my body literally couldn't take it. So here's the thing about being a space holder. If you don't know that's what you are, again, you will attempt to hold space for everything. That is virtually impossible simply because we're physical beings and everything literally encompasses things beyond us, right? So what we physically have the capacity for and energetically have the capacity for is not as big as what we could hold or try to attempt to hold, especially if you're doing it unintentionally. So I'm saying this to say the difference between an unintentional space holder versus a space maker is someone who understands, oh, I have the personality and the natural ability and want or desire to hold space. I enjoy this. I want to do this. And also, that means I cannot do it for everything and everyone. So I need to be specific about what I want to hold space for in my life, what I have the capacity for, and where I will put my boundaries and how they align with my values. Those all were things that went completely over my head. I didn't even know what they were. There was a program that I bought into. Essentially, what I was learning was how to run my own business as a stylist. In that program, it taught me I didn't know shit about myself. And because I didn't know about myself, I didn't know my boundaries, like I didn't know my values, I couldn't know my customer because my customer was essentially me at a certain point in my life. Whatever I understood how to work through, they were on the other side of that. So they didn't yet work through what I understood. But for me to be able to verbally say what I understood, I did not know because I didn't understand myself on a very minute level, like very not intrinsic. It's more specific than that, right? Like I didn't have clarity around who I was. I just knew myself based off of how other people reflected me. And so this is something that as a space holder you can relate to, because I know that you're gifted, you're talented, and there are things that you are naturally good at and you naturally want to do. But when asked to specify those things, write them down, explain them, pitch, how do you feel? Do you hesitate? Do you seize up? Do you get scared? Do you get worried? Do you start to sweat? If those things happen, you're missing clarity. So again, when I asked you, who are you? If you didn't have any concept of being the type of person who willfully holds space for others, insert a very specific way for a very specific reason, then you are missing clarity. And clarity is what will allow you to make space. Because when you're clear, you will know what you want to make space for. And when you're able to make space, now you're cooking with gas. This is what you really want to do. This is what you really want to be. Because those visions, those dreams, those big ideas that I told you about earlier, they will hinge on you knowing what to say yes to and what to say no to, what to make space for and what is not going to fit. And it's not going to fit because you can't make it fit. It's because you're holding this space for something more important, something more aligned, right? The reason I want to bring this to your attention, your big dream, your big goals, your visions will always seem so far away, so far in space, that you can't reach them, that you can't pull them down here to earth because you're missing clarity. And the irony that I've found is that if you're unclear on how to make these things real, it's usually because you're unclear on yourself. And if you're unclear on yourself, you might not be referencing or calling yourself a space holder. If you don't identify as a space holder, but yet you're holding space, and you're holding space unintentionally, that means you're just taking up space in places where you're not being valued, where you're not being appreciated, and you're not really wanted, right? You're being used in a sense. But when you're gone, like, maybe people will miss you, but why do they have to miss you when you're gone? Why don't they treat you nicely when you were there? These are the things that I learned and that I realized when I started to understand what it is to be someone who holds space, right? Because when you hold space, again, unintentionally, people will take advantage of that. People will use you, and they will find you useful for their own purposes and intentions, and they won't be concerned about yours. And you may not notice it until you're sick of it. And by the time you're sick of it, you can literally be sick, right? There's so much issue, so much chaos, so much drama happening that your nervous system is probably fried, right? You're burnt out, and it's like you're stressed beyond belief. You don't want to be there, right? And if you have been there, and if you are there, it's okay. That's not a problem. All you need is clarity. And clarity starts with knowing who you are. So step number 1 is admitting to yourself if you're a space holder. And step number 2 is understanding what exactly are you holding space for, and is that intentional? Step number 2.5 is admitting that it's likely not intentional. And step number 3 is going to be to remove the things you no longer want to hold space for. That includes relationships. That includes physical things. Things that are literally beacons to the past and echo relationships and eras of your life that you don't even really want to be associated with anymore. Things that you're holding on to just for the sake of holding on to them, they carry energy and they are weighing you down. Get rid of them. Get rid of them and them. All of it. And then step number 4 is to start to make space for the things that you do want. So you're going to get clear on who you are and what you want so that you can make space intentionally for the things that will make your dreams reality, that will make your visions clear and here, bring them here, right? For the things that are ideas that need to be felt and experienced by other people who would also love what you were thinking up, right? And probably want to help you make them happen, right? So this is why knowing who you are is so important. And who you are, especially if you're a space holder, is probably going to be very vast and very big, and you're probably not going to want to define yourself or restrict yourself to one thing. This is why I like the term space holder, because if you think about space, what is in space? Virtually everything. Like, the universe and space can be considered synonymous, just a little bit, right? So space can mean anything. Space can be many things. There are so many people in professions that are holding space and don't even call it that, but that's what they're doing, right? If you're a doctor, you hold space in some type of way. Caregiver, in any type of way, hold space. Teachers hold space. Artists whole space. Musicians are the same. But like, there are so many things that you can do and be and still be considered a space holder. So you want to get clear on being a space holder, first of all. And then second of all, once you know you are, you can get specific down to the details, because you are going to want to know what you are making space for. Right? Got me? My hope for you is that if I'm talking to you, you now know that yes, you are a space holder. And you're able to say, I am a space holder. And so when I ask, or anyone else for that matter asks you, who are you? At least you can say, pull out of your ass, I'm a space holder. I'm someone who holds space. And when they ask, for what? Now you got them. Hook, line, and the sinker will come with your clarity, right? So that's what I have for you today. That's what I wanted to share. And let me know what you think. What might you be interested in holding space for now? And what aren't you holding space for anymore? Let me know.